Welcome to the Starlight Podcast. Here we discuss the effects of modern culture on our mental, physical, psychological, and spiritual lives through a traditional Kemetic perspective. We hope to provide insight into what we have learned our ancestors did traditionally to live harmoniously with nature. Let the starlight illuminate your mind and shine on the path to help grow the seeds of change. Come join us in the light. Jahi, welcome to our 8th episode of the Starlight Podcast. Shamsaru, my brother right here.
Jai.
And we are glad to be here with y'all. We made it to the 8th. Listen, y'all. We say this all the time, but we made it to the 8th. We do say it, but we made it to the 8th, y'all. We are glad to be here with you today. And we want to get started by opening up our podcast by giving honor to the Dogon High Priest, Master Healer, the founder of the Kebta, the Maharu, the Truth Teller, Nebnaba Lamosa Motor Denabig, because without his diligence, his discipline, his sacrifice, and all that he did to learn, maintain, to uphold, and keep the traditions of Kemetic culture, and then reintroduce them back into the world, into the diaspora, we would not be here with you today. As well as we want to give honor and thanks to all of our ancestors, the ancestors of Shemsru, myself, and our producer, because without them, we would not be here today. And we want to give honor and thanks to the ancestors of all of our listeners, for without them, you would not be here with us today. And I want to acknowledge the seen and unseen forces that are here with us today. So, each and every episode, if you're brand new, then welcome. And if you're not new to us, you know that each and every episode of our podcast will feature Chem Talks, a view of the world through a Kemetic lens, which used to be our hot topics for those who were with us from the very, very beginning. But we found out that our hot topics, by the time, because we pre-record this, they would be lukewarm, y'all.
They'd be a little bit more lukewarm.
True, they might be a little cold topics. They weren't on the forefront of the news anymore, so we had to take another route. And so now we're Chem Talks, a view of the world through a Kemetic lens, and that's followed by our main discussion. And today, our main discussion is put your hands in the pot. The benefits of a home-cooked meal.
Yeah.
We're gonna get into that. I know, hey, for some of us, it's been a minute since we had a home cooked meal. We're gonna get into that today. And then following that, we're gonna do then pick a card, commandment of the week, the Griot's Corner, where we will feature different artists from the community. And then we will wrap up with a portion of the Bayou Wali reading, or what the Greeks called the horoscope. So let's get into it. What's today's Chem Talk, Shamsadu?
All right, so this is a pretty big one. It's like an ongoing one for many people all around the world, especially in modern communities. The conversation or the topic of what is food, right? We eat it all the time, but do you ever sit down and just ask yourself, what is food itself? So as always, I found myself looking into the etymology of the word food. Mm-hmm. And the word food comes from an old English word, foda, which basically meant nourishment or fuel.
Okay.
And that's an interesting word, because if it's nourishment or fuel, then you would have to ask yourself, like, okay, well, how is it being fueled? Or how then is the food itself turning into fuel? Okay. And we all have this understanding that fuel is energy, right? Or because you know that modern saying that everything is energy.
True.
Like, yeah, everything is energy, right?
Right.
But then there are those types of energy. So if you have fried foods, right, versus vegetables, fruits, grains, you know, certain things like that. Well, to fry it is essentially to kill it, but it's already dead, right?
True.
Because you're not eating a live substance. You're not putting a cow that's mooing into your gut, and then it gets nobody's doing that. And even then, once it hits the mouth, it's dead. You're killing it.
Right.
So then, if you're having fuel or a substance of fuel and nourishment to something that's dead, and even worse, something that's fried, baked in certain oils to kill certain things, you would really have to reconsider whether it's fuel or if it tastes good. Because in the modern society, what we do is we eat things that taste good.
Right.
But we are not eating as many raw vegetables as we probably should, or even as many, even if it's not raw vegetables, because there has certain connotations too, and you shouldn't always just be eating raw, but certain cooked things too.
Right. So I guess it would be knowing the source of where the fuel is coming from. But at the same time, the source. Like I think we had a podcast on Monsanto and their destructive power. Exactly.
So if you know the source, if it's coming from Uncle Earl up the street,
okay,
right, and Uncle Earl is doing it organically, then yeah, that's good.
Exactly.
But if Uncle Earl is not doing it organically, then it changes the concept of the food that you're putting, or the fuel that you're putting inside of yourself. Right. And like for me, the conversation of the topic is putting your hand in the pot, the importance of a home cooked meal. Mm-hmm. So my body is very sensitive, right? I can do something or not do something, and my body will quickly react to it. So if I find myself eating out more consistently, then that would mess up my digestive system, and then I'm not releasing the waste, or releasing the quote unquote fuel. So now I have all of this excess things inside of me that's leading to the destruction of other organs, and now I'm in a disposition, as opposed to get a home cooked meal. And that's when my host over here, Neferista Mary look, she be making foods.
Don't give it too much. Don't give it too much.
I'm gonna tell.
Listen, we're gonna have to get that in when we get into the topic, the main topic. Don't give them too much. Don't give them too much.
But I'm just saying the garlic dishes.
Okay, listen, we're gonna get into it. So it seems like you're saying in regards to food, when we no longer know the meaning of things, like understanding what food is, what it's meant for, then its original meaning gets lost, and redefined generally by the entity that is now controlling the things that we no longer understand. So, in the original meaning, it was understanding that food meant fuel, energy for the body, nutrition. But if that original meaning is being lost, and then we're subjugated to a redefinition unwittingly that does not benefit us, we don't even realize it. And it all goes back to food being weaponized and politicized. Yeah. And then when we think about that, it really goes against the natural order of things. So we're being further taken away from energy that is good for the body.
Absolutely. Because if you look at it like let's just take a random walk through the grocery store in our minds, right?
Right.
If you look at it, there's a lot of preservatives and chemicals in these quote unquote foods.
Exactly.
So you now have to consider whether the food that you're eating or the fuel that you're consuming loaded up with all of those chemicals,
salts, chemicals.
Bro, salt ain't even the half of it of what they be putting in food.
That's true.
So now you got all of these type of chemicals, and you put it into your body thinking that you're doing something of nourishment,
right?
But it's not. My mother always she prays over her food, right? She's Christian, so she prays over her food,
right?
Or she's giving thanks, to the energies. But she says for nourishment and strengthening of our bodies. And then I be considering, I like that really gets me, because it's like, but is it doing that? Because if you're about to eat that fried oyster, the fried chicken, the macaroni and cheese, the collard greens,
right,
and all of that, how is it really doing that thing?
Right,
but because it tastes good, right?
Okay.
So the chemicals, it's a wild thing, bro. If you really take a consideration of it, the chemicals play upon the mind,
the addiction.
Then it plays upon the body, the stomach. So there's this concept that I found in the colonial territories, where I was really studying the gut-brain connection, right? So there's this connectivity between the stomach and the brain, and they said that when it comes to brain cells, the stomach cells, that there's more stomach cells in the stomach than in the brain. So the connectivity between the two, I can trick you and coerce you by your stomach. So now if we have from our early age, school systems, kids in school systems are eating pizza and milk, or macaroni, cheese, milk, and chicken fingers. Their lunch system is not good.
It's not nutritious.
Even some from an early age, you're being destroyed.
You're destroyed and trained.
And being trained into what quote unquote food really is.
Right.
So then it tricks the mind as you go through an adult.
Exactly.
And then the society just perpetuates that, man. It's destructive.
It is destructive. And all that ends up having just negative results on our health as youth, but then for the future. and we don't even realize it.
Nah,
so
how could we?
Right. Not knowing the real goal of food, we just get caught up in the taste and bamboozled in every other way.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks, Shamsuru.
Yeah, no problem.
For that cat
That macaroni and cheese was hitting, though. I ain't gonna hold you. Bro, what? I used to always get the chocolate milk.
That's
I ain't
the
never get the white
kind.
milk. The chocolate milk tastes good. The white milk,
That's the
it
kind.
always tastes funny.
See?
Like, they had strawberry milk. That was disgusting.
Listen, y'all, we are foodies. You see, we're going to get a little caught
Because
up.
it had hella sugar.
We will get back on track, y'all.
Yeah, we're going to get back on track.
Thanks again, Shazzy. Okay, that was today's Chem Talk, y'all. That was today's Chem Talk. What is food? So, today's segment is Put Your Hand in the Pot, the importance of a home-cooked meal. And, we're going to really talk about our health and how it affects us, even, how the energy of it all affects us. And I know that's something that we hear thrown around, but we're going to get into it. So, now, I'm just going to give you guys some background. I'm an African-American 55-year-old woman who was raised by my grandparents who were born in 1986 and 1912.
All right. I know some people going to be confused. Yes, she meant 1896 and 1912. All right, let's go.
My grandparents raised me and my brother because my mother had lost her life when we were very, very young. So the one thing that was always important was my granny cooking a home-cooked meal. Now, see, my grandfather, he worked outside of the home, and my grandmother cleaned houses as well as took care of the neighborhood children. But mainly and proudly, she was a housewife. Now, that's something that nowadays we don't hear as much of it being proud of, but she was very proud to be a housewife. They worked well into their 70s, and going in to eat out was a seldom and an occasional treat. Now, we also had a huge garden growing up. We had many fruit-bearing trees, and we harvested, canned, and shared the harvest as well as the canned goods with and homemade dishes with our neighbors, our friends, and our family. The medicine for whatever that was ailing us was in the food that my granny made us. And there were certain dishes that she made only at certain times of the year. How she cooked was based on the season and what was best for our health. And we had great health growing up. And the food was delicious, Shamsuru. Like, it was, listen.
Look, I can imagine my grandmother.
Delicious. Now, my favorite smell, Shamsuru, was when she made applesauce from the apples on our tree. And then she canned them. The whole house would smell of cinnamon and apples, fresh apples, just warm. It'll be hot in that house because she's boiling these apples and she's taking the skin off and then she's mashing them. But the heat and the smell all throughout.
And you would be saying it's just descriptive of me being this hungry.
Listen, my bad.
My mouth is watering.
Listen, it was so delicious.
I can taste it.
You can, because it was so good. It was natural from the earth. We would be out there picking up the apples, climbing the tree to get the apples for her. And as an adult, I started out doing the quick and fast and easy. Prepackaged foods, the hungry man dinners, all that for my kids. But as a mother, I remembered what my granny did,
Well, you know how to make the applesauce?
I do. I haven't done it yet, but we're going to have to go apple. Listen, we're going to do apple picking this year.
You're not bluffing?
I'm not bluffing.
That's November time.
Listen.
I look forward to November time for that. Yeah.
We're going to do that. But in hard times and in times of hardship, I remember what my granny did, because I can make a world of things from some flour, salt, butter, etc., eggs, the staples in my kitchen. I can make so many other things. I realized that eating out, I mean, I know me and you have talked about this a few times, eating out is far more expensive, as well as I couldn't control what was being put into my children that affected their and my health. So I continued making home-cooked meals as the rule, not the exception. And in the end, I think it also comes down to, what do we value? Do we value our health, Or instead, we have to think about what have we been conned into not valuing any longer? You know, when we no longer cook for ourselves, aren't we now leaving our nutrition and health in someone else's hands? And for anyone who knows anything about energetic exchanges, that's just the physical side of things, leaving the nutrition in other folks' hands. There's so much more that goes into it when you actually take the time to be, now in a perfect world, like my grandparents growing the food, but then cutting up the food, putting that love and attention in it. You know, some folks will say, girl, you put your whole foot in this pie.
And I always thought like, damn, I hope you wash your feet. Like as a child, y'all ain't never understand that, but I do understand it. It's just a saying.
That's a saying. I mean,
like, absolutely, because in restaurants now, yo, I've worked at Chuck E. Cheese.
Okay.
That's all I'm gonna say. All I'm gonna say is I've seen some things, and I was just like, yo, why are people eating certain things? And you know, in the bigger restaurants and stuff like that, bro, you don't know what's going on. You don't know how the person is even preparing themselves before they go about cooking. And that energetic exchange is a big thing, because sometimes you can eat some food and you like, yo, my stomach hurts.
It might taste good.
It might taste amazing, and all of a sudden you feel sick.
You just feel sick, and you don't know why. The other thing is, like you said in our Chem Talk, you just don't know how many chemicals are in the food when someone else is cooking it for you.
You don't. And look, most of us like sauce. Now, I know me specifically am a sauce guy, right?
Okay.
Sauces be having over 50 ingredients sometimes.
Absolutely.
And some of them, like half of them are just chemicals. Like you don't even need certain things.
You don't.
Because the beautiful thing is about when it comes to sauce, certain things are on the shelf that you can buy. But some of them things, man, I just
you don't even know what they are.
You just don't. You really don't.
Remember when we first came back from Medita?
Yeah.
And we had our first meal out together. I want to say it was Applebee's.
No, it couldn't have been. It wasn't Applebee's. It was TGI Fridays.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Bro, the amount of salt.
Listen, I don't know if we should be. I don't know if this is a whole ripping TGI Fridays.
Yeah, because I just said Chuck E. Cheese on the mic. Ugh.
Yeah, but okay, we don't know, y'all. But we going to talk about it.
But listen,
it was. We both were coming back, trying our hardest to replicate the healthy, delicious experience that we had in Medita, in Africa, traditional Africa.
And I know we went to TGI Fridays, but we had a little cheat day.
Right. We said we were going, but we would try to look for a healthy meal in TGI Fridays.
The only thing that's healthy in TGI Fridays is the water.
Listen, y'all.
Yo, the salad had over what?
It was over 3,000 milligrams of sodium in just the salad.
And look, most of that probably is the dressing, because I'm sure they're not pouring salt into the lettuce. But you really gotta.
It was the bacon
and then everything else, everything else, just to make it taste good. Like you really gotta reconsider what you're eating.
Right.
And you know, like the art of food and the art of food creation and preparation is now coming back into the hands of the people. But we still have the connotation of making it tasty.
Yes.
You know, I mean, yeah, it should taste good and also be beneficial for you. But you know, you really have to reconsider the stuff that you put. Yeah, you really have to reconsider the goal, essentially.
Right.
The stuff that you put inside of your body and what's it doing, and the reason behind it. You know, like now, granted, listen, I ain't even gonna hold you, okay, people. I follow a lot of food Instagram accounts, and listen, even before this podcast started, I was like, I was making some sounds, and she was like, "Stop it!" And I'm like, "Hey, but look at the fish." And he like split the parts open. He put the seasoning inside of the fish. It would just look mad good. But you know, you really have to reduce the amount of times that you're eating certain things,
right?
And reconsider the reason behind you eating that specific thing,
right?
You know?
And if you don't understand that food is supposed to be fuel, like we said in our Chem Talk, if you don't understand that even when you cook, just like anything else you do, you're pouring your energy into that meal. There is an energetic exchange, one between you and the food that you're cooking, and then the people that get to eat your food.
Yeah, there's definitely an energetic exchange. And then even like the person who's serving your food can be a thing too.
Yes.
And I mean, you know, we're not necessarily saying that you have to mitigate for the entirety of your life, right? But just being aware of certain things will make you move different.
Right.
You know, having the awareness of, oh, maybe I should reduce the amount of times that I'm going out as every day, as opposed to like, twice a week.
Right. Or even like, when I was growing up, my grandparents did take us out to eat, but it was like once a month.
Yeah, it was seldom.
It was seldom.
My mother would cook often. My grandmother would cook. My dad would cook. We would always be cooking. But, when I was growing up, I know it was less often than when you were growing up. Right. Because I also remember I still remember my order from KFC.
Okay.
600 barbecue wings and a side of macaroni.
See, listen, we were going to Geno's. Geno's was the place to be. It had chicken, and you could get good chicken.
It's back in the day.
Back in the day, after Sunday church, after the drive, because my grandfather would take a drive, and then you would go to Geno's. But it was once every blue moon, and Geno's chicken was not better than my grandmother's chicken, because back then you knew how to cook. Like the food that you got at home, and Shamsu, I know you know, because the food that you cook yourself, once you get something out and about that you like, the food that you cook yourself ends up tasting so much better when you take the time to understand how the ingredients should be together, what their what their medicinal benefits are. Then you get to control it, and you make it the way your palate wants it.
Like, I'm about to go make some hummus, and I'm specifically going to put the amount of garlic in because I can feel my throat starting to, I involve myself, and I'm around a bunch of kids all the time.
Right.
And I can tell that certain foods out don't have certain things.
Yes.
And I can tell my body's like, okay, we need this.
Yes.
What are you doing? So it's like, the ability to be able to control what you put in, like it's an alchemical exchange with the food, the energy, and those different aspects, those different chemicals. Now you're combining certain things,
right?
But even with them in restaurants, it's still an alchemical exchange.
Yes,
but now you got to look at the alchemist,
right? Who's behind the creation, and then what are like you said, the chemicals that they are crafting and putting together, and then how has your body now gotten adjusted to that?
Yeah.
So your body will now send you messages that are not even beneficial to it because it's craving something that's not good for it.
Absolutely.
Instead of when you're eating naturally, if you're cooking yourself, if you know where you're getting the food, now when your body has a craving, because listen, the body is such an amazing instrument. It will tell you what it needs, but you have to put in a foundation of what it needs so that you can know what it needs. And if you start off with crap, you're going to end up craving crap. If you start off putting things good and you're cooking yourself, not only does your knowledge of what you need be right there, but your body, like your knowledge as in, I know what I need to cook. I can cook these things. But also your body will tell you, like you said, when you have a deficit. Going back to when we were in Merita.
I knew you was about to. I was trying to snatch it first.
Go ahead.
I was trying to snatch it.
Go ahead.
All right. So when we was in Merita, right? Specifically, this one time when we were in Bobo de Lasso.
Yeah.
We had the opportunity to go to Naba Irita.
Yes.
His house. And
Naba Irita's house.
Naba Irita's house. And we spent a lot of time with his mom. And grandmama would make foods that were pertaining to like the illness and then the restoration of everybody in the group.
Everybody, and 30 plus.
It's a science behind it. It's not just sitting out and seeing a withered woman's hands stir oils and fabrics and foods and fold things and do certain. No, it's really a science behind it, because you would eat it and feel better.
Oh,
like I would
yes.
wake up sometimes, like I said in the beginning, my body is mad sensitive, right? So I would wake up in the beginning and feel like, bro, I need to puke. And then we would eat food, and I wouldn't want to eat food because I had to puke. I wouldn't want to eat food. And then that first like, and I'm like, all right. So then I get to eat, and I'm like, oh, what was wrong with me again? She was like, yeah. And you know how women do that. I'm doing it right now. And then but it was still the magic behind the food.
Yes.
And like coming back to America, I remember one of my first meals outside of what my mother cooked was Chipotle.
Yeah.
Bro, my body physically could not do it. And I was just like, And that's one of the healthier ones,
Right.
That's not like a real fast food restaurant,
We're doing air quotes. It is one of the healthier ones.
Quote unquote healthier ones, but you got to look at the whole entire preparation process.
Exactly.
And listen, I get it.
Yeah,
I'm probably going to go to Chipotle on Wednesday. But, you got to reconsider the amount of times you do certain things. And then the goal behind that thing. Now, if you're just trying to eat because it tastes good,
have at it.
Sure. But just remember,
long term,
if you don't remember it on the front end,
say it now.
It's gonna affect you on the back end.
Listen.
So you need to take the opportunity and time to reconsider the goal and your progress towards the point in which you want to be.
Absolutely. That's a mic drop.
Yo,
that's a mic drop.
If this mic wasn't swinging on a boom arm, I'd drop it and go warm up my food.
Listen. I know that's right.
Because I'm hungry.
For
real. My stomach is giving them signals. I am kind of hungry.
I know. It's serious. We're going to get into this a little bit more, y'all. But now we are going to go on to our next segment, Shemzru.
Mm-hmm.
And that is Pick a Card, Commandment of the Week.
Yay.
Kafra. Pardon this interruption. This is a quick disclaimer. What you're about to hear in this segment was not taught to us directly in our M-Time classes. What is being discussed are personal thoughts and perspectives based on the understandings as well as practical everyday application of what we have received in our M-Time classes. Dua.
So, some of you may know the 42 laws of Ma'at, and some of you may be familiar a bit with the 10 Commandments. All of these come from a much larger body of knowledge. The Great Book of Divine Ordinances, the Code of Human Behavior, or also what some know as the 77 Divine Ordinances. These laws were given to humanity from the world of the gods. Humans or governments did not create them, and they have no political agenda. These are rules that allow us to live harmoniously on this earth together in balance with nature while evolving towards the divine world. So, Shemzru, what is today's commandment of the week?
So the commandment that we're going to choose today is thou shalt not deprive a poor person of their subsistence.
Ooh, okay, you know what? This...
Ew.
See, this is a good one. And when I thought about often since learning about it. See, first, if I take it from a literal sense, simply being able to have food, just that. I remember as a little girl playing outside all day and eating from many of the fruit-bearing trees and berries that lined our block. We knew how to look for mulberries and the mulberry trees, and even eating from the walnuts from time to time. My grandparents had a huge garden, like I was saying. They had a peach tree. Now, listen, I don't know what my grandmother did. Our peach tree had one side peaches and one side nectarines. It was one whole tree. Yes,
no, it didn't.
I am not lying.
Anyway,
my head. No, I'm serious. I'm telling you, my grandmother had.
How?
I don't know. To this day, I don't know what she did.
Mutation?
I guess, but I don't know how she did it.
Grandma conjure magic.
Listen, one side of the tree was peaches and the other side was nectarines.
That's like me having a mango tree that produces apples.
I don't know what she did. But she had a peach nectarine tree. She had a big, huge apple tree. Down the street was one of our neighbors had a pear tree. Somebody else had strawberries growing in their front yard, and we knew how to look for the wild strawberries too that you can eat. Like, there was so much just out and about that when we were playing, we would just stop, look, put a little on that apple.
You know what's crazy?
What's that?
You know what's crazy?
What's that?
Because of the lack of that now, I kind of forgot fruit grows on trees.
Ooh.
It can grow in the wild like that. I forgot.
You know what?
I haven't seen
what you're saying is probably what a lot of people Think now,
I
because where would you see it? Where would you see it?
I don't. I can't even tell you the last time. And then look, as a child, we were told to not eat it because it was poisonous. I mean, certain fruit was poisonous, but yeah, certain things we couldn't eat.
We knew all the trees, all the plants, all the.
Bro,
to this day, I know how to find raspberries out in nature and eat the raspberries. But listen, that's the point. Nature sustained us. Nature sustained us. We go all day.
That.
It's deep. And think about it. If nature sustained us, just children playing, even if you were struggling and just walking the streets, if you were homeless, you could find something to eat in nature.
Yeah. You remember when we were walking back from the store in Merita, and there was that fruit? I forgot that big, huge,
my goodness.
That bad boy was the size of baby Shakur.
Oh, wait a minute. Yes. Oh, I see the picture, and I cannot remember what fruit it was. And you're right. It was just on the street.
A dragon? It wasn't a dragon fruit. Jackfruit.
It was a jackfruit. Yep. Just on the streets. Just growing on the streets.
Big as can be. That thing was like an owl.
It did. Big as it can be, just growing on the streets. So, nature sustained us. You had food all over the place. These days, many of us simply struggle to provide food for our own families.
Yep.
Struggling. And we're dependent now
upon the system.
On someone else for our subsistence.
Absolutely.
And that's just speaking of food.
Mm-hmm.
When we think about the mindset of a poor person, I looked at it as poor doesn't always have to be the physical sustenance.
Right.
Poor may also be your mental sustenance.
Right.
Are you going to then create a culture where you're not providing those in the culture to have what they need so their minds can grow?
Right.
Being that we've gotten a chance to study with the Kebta, you don't understand how your mind is being fed in Western culture things that dumb it down.
Mm-hmm.
You don't realize just learning simply English, because the U.S. forces, they're not really big. Although we get a little intro to languages in school, it's not like they're really saying to us, you should be bilingual, you should learn another language. We want people here who are even living here to embrace their native languages. It's really a push that says we want you all to speak English, and everybody else in the whole world speak English, and that's it. But even knowing different languages build your mind.
For sure.
So you have to start wondering, why are we involved or part and parcel of a community, a culture that is doing everything to keep us dumb, that makes us poor, that makes us dependent upon, and that always reminds me and takes me back to, thou shalt not deprive a poor person of their subsistence.
Yep.
Because you make a person conveniently a slave when you don't allow them to have the basic things for their subsistence. So that's a heavy one. It's a big one.
It's a thing, or it's a commandment that you really got to consider. And these are just our meditations and thoughts behind it. Once you go into initiation, you'll get more and different things and stuff like that.
Right.
But, like me personally, I always have to look at the concept of poor and then a concept of subsistence, and how am I depriving a poor person? Even when it comes to me being a substitute teacher in the Baltimore County Public Schools and me being a 101 IEP in the Baltimore City Public Schools, I got to approach the students differently.
Right.
When I'm a substitute, I have to approach the whole entire class. I can't just single out. So, I might, whatever I'm teaching or showing them a specific thing, I'll give them a little bit more of a nugget towards something.
Right.
Just so that it can foster an environment inside of their mind that potentially a seed that can be planted inside of their mind that can potentially sprout into something else. And you can see children's eyes light up. Like if I ask them, I asked this one kid in the county schools, I was like, bro, and he was like, hey. I was like, because I usually call them bro because I don't know their names. I'd be like, hey friend, what's up? Because I don't know their names at all. But anyway, I said, what year are we in? And he was like, we're in 2025. And I was like, oh, okay. You sure? And he looked at me. He was like, yeah, we're in 2025. And I was like, what does that mean?
Right.
And he was like, the earth and the world has been around. I was like, what? Keep going. He was like, for 2025,
right,
1,000 years.
Right.
And I'm like,
because what else would they know? What else would we know?
And then I'm like, well, that means the dinosaurs existed in your lifetime, huh? Kinda, probably. And he's like, no, they didn't. And I was like, well, if they didn't, then are you sure that the earth has only been around for 2025 years? And he's like, no. He was like, what does it mean? And I smiled at him. And I was like, before I give you the answer, I want you to keep thinking about it.
Right.
And then we walked away. And then, later we talked about it. And then he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, like, look at the calendar, look at the time. Like, what do you think time is? And he never even thought about it. Kids in that third grade, I don't know.
Why would he? How many of us have thought about it?
It's time to go to lunch.
That's it.
It's time to go to work. It's time for me to go to sleep. Nobody. It's time
to eat.
Yes.
It's time to go to work.
So
like you said, without the knowledge, and we have to think of what are we being deprived of? Right. What are we purposefully being deprived of? And that's problematic.
Right. It definitely is problematic. It's problematic because it affects you in different ways. This system is a system of something. This system is a system of deprivation. Right. But it's a purposeful deprivation.
Right. So you have to.
It has to hold a monopoly on as many things it can have a monopoly on,
yes.
Right? If you have like that hierarchy of needs by, what do you say, Maslow?
Yep.
If you have Maslow's hierarchy of needs, then you already know that everybody's going to be born into a system where they have needs. So right. The intelligent thing is to monopolize all of those needs that other people would want. By doing that, you can control them, right? The subsistence is the need that the person has towards those things. But now, for you to have water, you have to pay Baltimore City, Baltimore County, or whatever county you live in,
right.
a certain amount of water, a certain amount of money to get the water, or they're going to shut it off.
To deprive you of basic necessity.
Same thing with the electricity, right? Now, granted, you don't necessarily need electricity, but the way the system of the society is set up, you need electricity, right? So then if you don't have certain things inside of your home running, then you can get fined. And once you get fined enough, they can come to your house, right? So then, like, let's say you don't have money to pay your rent. Eventually, the bank's going to foreclose it.
Right.
Put a lien on it. And now you got to get up out of there. So the shelter's gone. Food's gone. Education. What Donald Trump's cutting half the
jobs.
Exactly. So these things that we need, it's putting us in a disposition to where we are the poor position,
right.
the poor person deprived of our subsistence. And it's a system that self-perpetuates the destruction of the individual who finds himself living inside of the system, right? Now, if you think, as the listener, if you think that the government or, people say the shadow government don't have things that are of tradition, you really need to rethink that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because the intelligent thing to do is go to where the education is. And if at one point, for lack of better terminology, the monopoly of education or the existence of the education was along the Nile Valley, then all around the world, people are going to go towards where the education is, right?
Yeah,
but then, like, what you learn is some people take, some people come, take it, steal it. Some people come, reflect their lives towards it, and then some people are like, listen, it's just too much. Right? So, trickle down back to our United States government, bro, you gotta really reconsider this place that you find yourself in. If you have the Matrix, right? We all know about the concept of the Matrix, and this is all going back to that commandment.
We've talked about this before.
If we all have the concept of the Matrix, we gotta look at the thing or the one who put in place the code of the Matrix itself. If there's a computer program, how did it become a computer code program?
Right.
Obviously, you got a programmer.
The programmer?
Obviously, you got a programmer, right? So the destruction of where we find ourselves in is a lot deeper than what we are considering. We really have to try to piece back as much as we can and really look at our position. Yo, you work a 9 to 5. That's cool and everything, right? But the 9 to 5, after you work 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., you're going to be tired, right? Mm-hmm. You're not necessarily going to go home and cook for your family and you. You're not necessarily going to worry about the education that your children experience. When it's time for you to wake your butt up and go to church, you're not necessarily going to reconsider, who is the pastor and who did he learn from? You really got to consider these things because the subsistence concept is everywhere.
Right. And when our needs are defined, because all those things that are considered needs are being defined by someone else.
It is.
When you no longer know as an individual or as a species, as all of humanity, understanding the goal of what we're here for, it's easy to replace that goal with needs, and then it's easy to control those needs because it's been taken out of your hands, and thus we have been successfully made the poor person who is being deprived of their subsistence.
And then we'll think of, I'm not trying to take this too long, this is the last thing I'll say, we'll think of subsistence as money.
Right.
And then say, I'm good on this front, I'm good on this front, I'm good on this front. The dangers of being right. There's an article, Master Naba wrote a story on the dangers of being right, and we'll plug that through the Rising Firefly.
Yeah.
Which is actually a branch of the Kepta.
Yes.
That we have our publications through. You all really need to check that out. It's almost a lot of things of the Kepta, the M-Time schools, et cetera, are imperative for the rebuilding of the human.
It's like an encyclopedia of life.
It is. I mean, of your life. It's not even just saying, it's not isolating anybody. Nobody's isolating anybody. Take that out of your mind. The quote-unquote Egyptians, they were more than just the skin color of black, but
that's a whole other story for another whole
time. We're not
even
getting into that.
Right.
But check out the dangers of being right. It's really good. It's really powerful.
So thank you, Shamsuddin. That was commandment number 3 of the Great Book of Divine Ordinances, the Code of Human Behavior. Thou shalt not deprive a poor person of their subsistence. Should you want to dig deeper and learn more, feel free to just give us an email at the Starlight Podcast at theearthcenter.org. Or go ahead and check out our website, www.therisingfirefly.org to learn more, as well as www.kebta.com. And so that's it for Pick a Card Commandment of the Week.
Mm-hmm.
Ujai, this is your producer, Big Gib, here with this week's sponsor. This week's sponsor is the Kebta Community Membership. By joining the Kebta community, you have access to the following: a members-only e-portal where there is exclusive members-only content, a 10% discount on published products, you get to engage with members through forums and community-building discussion groups, and much, much more. Membership is $50 per year and open to anyone of the age of 18 years or older. Any applicant who is 17 years or younger will need a parental consent before becoming a member. If interested in becoming a member, email us at thestarlightpodcast@theearthcenter.org or check out our website, www.kebta, that's KEBTAAH, kebta.org, and select membership from the menu. Thank you. Let's get back into today's episode. Dua.
Thank you, Big Geb, for giving us information on our Kebta membership, Kebta community membership. Definitely you all go check that out to learn more and to join the community.
Art is a very powerful tool that we utilize to express different places in space and time, or different things that may be weighing on our mind or hearts that we want to get out, right? So this next artist that we're going to bring up, the host, she's a wonderful artist, a wonderful writer. She always thinks that she isn't a part of the guild of writers, and it's so wild. And this poem that she's about to give to you, I actually had the opportunity of reading it, and I like it. I like it a lot. So if you're in your cars, in your seats, at home, sitting on the couch, walking to the store, going to KFC, we see you. Give a round of applause for Neferista Merusheta.
Neta Duel. Thank you, Shemzru, for that awesome greeting. So, y'all, like he said, I don't consider myself a writer or a poet.
That. Don't even say that.
But I'm getting there, y'all. And my brother Shemzru always reminds me that I am. So I'm going to stop saying that. He's right. This is something I wrote years ago for a dear friend of mine for his birthday. But it made me reflect on how our birthday, the day that we're born, or what we would now call, I call our born day, as we celebrate it each year, is a beginning. Excuse me. So this is actually called a ditty for your birthday. In the beginning, the sun began as a twinkle in the night. The universe, a speck of dust, a flower blooming from a seed. A beginning to all things is a must. A first love starts with a crush, an eternity with a vow of a lifetime. Tears of joy from the first heartbeat in the womb, a love anew that is unfathomable to the mind. Today, the birth of endless possibilities. The sky is the limit, birthing new ideas, new encounters, new choices. The future grows brighter with every minute. On this day, there was rejoice. From the struggle of pain, there came beauty, screaming out to the world, I am here. I can do anything. Just wait. You'll see. So, today, begin. Birth a different mindset. Choose not to falter. Today's your day to decide what you'll accept. Let every day be your birthday. A day for creating something new. Know that there is someone great who has your back, and know that there is no greater love than the love of you.
Yeah, you can go ahead and wipe that tear from your eye. I told you. I told you. You see, y'all, the thing is, y'all be thinking I'm joking, right? If I say true story, it's a true story. If I tell you something, it's probably real. As I said, probably, but we gonna go past that. So that was the Griot's Corner. If you are interested in submission, you have every opportunity to submit your piece. If you are a singer and you want to come sing,
absolutely,
you can come live to the studio if you're in Baltimore, Maryland, or if you're not, you can drive to Baltimore, Maryland, because, yeah.
We can have you live.
If you, whatever artist, whatever form of art that you want to express and do, and then even, I'm talking about for the future, once we have video, if you cook, you can come cook for us. I ain't going to deny your food.
I know that's right.
I ain't going to deny you. Listen, one thing I'm not going to do is deny your food. Okay? Just don't make me chillin', because then I'm going to deny your food.
And whether live or like or just drop us a line. You can send us your artistry too.
Yeah, you can tap in. You can call in, so we can get you via that way.
Yep.
And we'll give you all information very soon.
Absolutely. And you can also send us your piece at our email address, which is, again, the Starlight Podcast at theearthcenter.org. And that is it for our Griot's Corner. So coming up next, our next segment is the Bayouwali divination. Ooh, new mouth, y'all.
Bro.
Bayouwali divination. There we go. Bayouwali divination. So for those of you who are new, I just want to give you some context. The science of reading the Earth's energies is over 70,000 years old, and it's originating in the temples of Thebes, Memphis, and Abydos, and known by modern science as geomancy. And see, parts of this science can still be found all over the world, but the original form of the readings is known as M-Tom. That's M''Tam, M-Tom. And it's still practiced by the Gormanche people of West Africa. So we know in traditions that the earth is a concentration of energies. Scientists know that now too, on and in which the destinies, now the science may not know that, of each and every component of life is traced. The notion of energetic forces applies to every component of the universe. And it is the relationship among these diverse forces, the dialogue of energies, that determines life and its principles. So M-Tom is the system that studies the energetic currents that are emitted or received by Earth and their influence on humans and nature. So the most common system of prediction in the modern world is astrology, which operates on the principles that planets and stars influence our mood, character, and destiny. If astronomical objects over 350,000 kilometers from Earth are capable of influencing humans, then we gotta think, what about the planet on which humans are living? The Bayouwali, or Earth energy readings, translates the energies of the Earth and how they affect humans and their environment in space and time. So in the sidereal calendar, if you have the sidereal calendar, that is our Kemetic traditional calendar. And you can get that from our website. We are currently in the month of Penrenut. And in Greek astrology, there are astrological signs. However, in traditional Kemetic culture, we know that the brain cannot invent. It can only copy. So there is nothing new under the sun. The astrological signs of Greek astrology come from the Netheru, or the gods, that reside over each month of the sidereal calendar. So these gods have great influence over and reside over those who are born in that month, in the particular month. So the month of Penrenut is from April 8th to May 7th of the Gregorian calendar. I say that because did y'all know that the calendar that we use right now is the Gregorian calendar? Look at that up when you get a chance and figure out, why are we following the Gregorian calendar? So those that are born in this month are born under the Neter, or the god Imen. And Imen is an invisible, self-created god. He is a warrior god and is important in keeping divine order. He protects gods with his shadow. Imen is very discreet, but is active and viral, y'all, not viral, viral. At the very same time, he is very high on the hierarchy of gods, but will come to the battlefield to fight when the divine order is threatened. In the beginning, it was Imen who fought and destroyed the enemies of the divine order. So for those who are born in the month of Penrenut, from April 8th to May 7th, you are born under the god Imen. And there are certain animals that are considered taboo. They are sacred animals to that god, and thus they are considered taboo for those who are born in that time period. They are forbidden to consume or kill these animals. And those animals include sacred bull, ram, cow, vulture, and cobra. Now, if you're here from the West and you're listening to us, most of y'all are like, okay, I'm good because I don't eat any of those anyway. But this is considering all of the earth, all of the people who were born. So in some of those countries and some of those places, some of those things might be eaten. So that's for the month of Penrenut, April 8th to May 7th. But to get full access to more in-depth information on those born under the Neter, Imen, or any of the months, or to check out your own Bayouwali reading, go to www.bayouwali.com. www.risingfirefly.org and click horoscope. And to purchase the current reading for $4.99, you can do that there too. And that will unlock the ancient wisdom so that you can lead a more balanced life in your everyday life. All right, so Shamsuru, we are at our last 10 minutes of our main topic. Any last words?
I mean, you always just gotta be mindful of what you put in your mouth. There's a lot of health issues that we find ourselves facing inside of the modern world or this Western culture that sometimes in other places they don't necessarily have. Now, granted, interestingly enough, America and their Food Drug Administration system, they put a lot of chemicals in that certain countries are banning.
Right.
And you got to take in consideration or ask yourself, or you don't have to, you should though, ask yourself, what's the reason that they can put this in this country, but they won't put that in another country?
Right.
Or should I put this inside of my body? Because regardless, whether every country had a specific chemical that was detrimental to the body, essentially you're the one that's putting it into your mouth.
Right.
So, I mean, the body is a fantastic vessel because it can sustain a lot of the detriment or danger that we put to it. All of the hurt that's having and all of those different things, the body can sustain it. But do you really want to have certain health issues?
I think that's what people forget, that
because of what you put in
for all those years. Like you don't think about it.
Yo, you gotta lay down on the chitlins, bro.
Right, and then you get into your 40s and 50s and you start having health problems, and most of us think that we're just starting to have health problems.
Yeah.
We don't realize that it's been, since you were young, a lifetime of poor nutritional decision making.
Absolutely.
That lead to your high blood pressure, that lead to diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
We don't realize that really. And because we're in the West, it's not really talked about in a proper way. The number one killer to most of us is what we eat.
Yeah.
Not the smoking, not car accidents, not drinking.
Mm-hmm.
It's what we're putting in our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not told to look at that, it's very easy, like you were saying in our previous segment in the Chem Talk, that you're just going to eat for fun.
Mm-hmm.
And what makes you feel good? Feel good for the moment, but you're not looking at the longevity of what's going to happen down the line.
Right. I mean, you're not taught to.
Right.
If you were, they wouldn't be feeding the kids what they be feeding them. Now, granted, some schools are doing,
and we would be buying
have certain programs to bring healthier foods and styles, but let's look at the undercity, inner city, under budgeted, poor communities of
food deserts, all the things
cities,
we've been talking.
right?
Yeah,
let's
absolutely.
look at the cities,
yeah,
because you can smell how toxic the ketchup is.
That's true.
I'm like,
that don't smell like ketchup.
Ugh.
It don't smell like a tomato
and
no more.
Look, we should do an episode on the reason why they have certain things. They have ketchup. Well, no, we don't need that. They have ketchup because the foods were so underqualitized.
Yep.
Or so bad that we needed something to coat it with something else.
Yeah, to mask the taste.
You really gotta take the power. You really have to take the power back to you.
That's right.
The ability to take the power back to you is just set out some time, 30 minutes a day, learn gardening.
Those who control the food control the family.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then look, all of those communities that quote unquote find themselves inside of a food desert, bro. All cities find themselves under a food desert. What you can do is learn gardening.
Yes.
Now, if you have certain things, you can garden inside your house and outside your house. Clean your house. Some of y'all need to clean your house. You can garden on the inside of your house and on the outside of your house. You know, plant couple. Just take some time. Put some seeds in the soil. Water it. Let it get some light. You like light. The seeds like light too. Let the tomatoes grow. Chop the tomatoes. You got lettuce now. Somehow, you know.
Yeah. And cook. There is just
we have to, as people, we have to start doing that. And that's one thing that we don't do.
The one thing I love, you know, I love to cook, and I love to cook more because I love to feed people, and that's something that I was blessed to watch my grandmother do. And Shemza knows, because there's certain meals, if when I make it and I make enough of it, and I cook big. I grew up as a foster child in a big family, so when I cook, it's annoying for like 9-10 people in one sitting.
You see their plate size too.
But I will call Shemza and say, hey, I cooked this, come get a plate. Because the beautiful thing about cooking is, one, I can feed other people, but two, I do know, as the mother, the first nutritionist in our family, I know what to put in the food so that my children, my family, my friends can be healthy.
I mean, as you should. Like, we're outsourcing other communities and other places to package certain foods and send it and ship it off. Like those frozen patties that you probably put into the little air fryer. How long that little chicken tender has been frozen?
How long it been frozen? And does it have any life to it yet to give you life?
Our great grandparents they did have frozen foods and canned foods and stuff like that, but they was doing that stuff themselves. Yes, that's the thing about it. You know, like my mother used to tell us a story of how her grandfather had a farm, and he would chase down a chicken, grab that bad boy, wring his neck, chop that bad boy off, and then they'll be eating it.
Listen. We done plucked the chicken.
Yeah, you gotta dip it in hot water
and
so the feathers can be a little puffy and just
listen.
Take it off.
And that chicken, delicious.
Girl, stop talking about it because I'm hungry.
Okay.
You always talking about food when I'm like super hungry. We had a whole podcast on food, and my stomach growling, the kid's stomach growling. I can hear her stomach growling from upstairs. We all hungry. You talking about good food and garlic, bro. I need some garlic in my life.
I guess we gonna wrap this up with us going to go cook some food.
What?
We gonna go cook some food, y'all. We go maybe some toe and sauce, some fufu and sauce. My grandbabies love some fufu. But we gonna wrap this up. That's another wrap up of an episode of the Starlight Podcast,
check
y'all.
Us out. Tell your friends about us. Tell your cousins too.
Yeah, you know, we it's important to cook. It's important to cook food by your own hand. It's important to know what the foods that you are, the plants, the food that you have, what are its medicinal properties, because food is supposed to be fuel. It's supposed to be nourishment. It's supposed to be the thing that helps heal your body and give you energy. And when we're not eating for that, it's easy for us to make bad choices, but then end up having bad health because of those choices. So take some time. It may be that you start out with one meal, but take your time to put your hand in the pot. You know, take your time to clear your mind, put on some good music that's peaceful and uplifting, and go ahead and cook yourself a good meal in your kitchen. And sit down at the table, turn off the technology, and sit down at the table together and eat the food together as a family. This was a time that allowed us to find out how our days were. It was a time for quiet. Back when I was growing up, everybody knew not to call the house. No one called your house during dinner time. Now we have our phones there at the dinner table. We need to take the phones away from the dinner table and just sit down and have some time with good food and each other, because that communion is not just with each other, but it's a time for our ancestors to commune too. We're going to get into that in another episode. But food is nutrition. Food is fuel. Food, when you're eating it and making it yourself, is life. Or it can be part of your death.
It can be part of your death.
That's it, y'all, for another episode of the Starlight Podcast. I'm not exactly sure what we're getting into next week. We might do a continuation of the holy days versus holidays, y'all, because I know some Easter and some different things are coming up. or have passed. I'm not sure when y'all gonna be listening to this. Real talk, we're not sure, but we gonna continue in 2 weeks with our next episode. So from there, I want to thank you for joining us. This is Nefrista and my brother, and we out of here, y'all.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Starlight Podcast. To learn more about Bayouali Earth Energy readings, go to www.risingfirefly.org. To book a spiritual reading or a health consultation, go to www.anhlife.org. And if you're interested in learning more about Kemetic culture, visit our website at www.theearthcenter.org. Don't forget to like, share, and follow us on all social media platforms at Kenta and on Facebook, The Earth Center. May you shine as bright as the starlight in the night. Iriru. Peace.
Peace.